Oi, pessoal, boa tarde, sejam todos muito bem-vindos
Hello
a essa
everyone,
conversa
good
especial sobre
afternoon
a
and welcome
Amazônia
to
e os
this special
investimentos na
conversation about
preservação.
the Amazon
Hoje nós
and
vamos
the
falar sobre
investments
diversos
being
pontos
made to preserve
importantes
it.
da
Today, we're
preservação
going
do
to talk about a
patrimônio da
number of
humanidade
important
e como as
topics
empresas
to
estão cada
preserve
vez
this
mais
heritage of
preocupadas em
humankind.
auxiliar no
And we'll
processo de
talk about
preservação
how
e manutenção
corporations
desses
are more and more
ecossistemas.
invested
Não é
in
de
working
hoje
with
que
the
o compromisso com a
preservation and
sustentabilidade
conservation
tem se
of this
tornado
rich
cada vez mais
ecosystem.
forte como
A
parte da
commitment
rotina de
towards
investidores e
sustainability
empresários.
has become
Só se
something
fala
more
de
important in the
ESG.
day-to-day of
As três
investors and
letrinhas que
entrepreneurs.
resumem as melhores
Everyone talks
práticas
about
sociais,
ESG,
ambientais e de
the three
governança.
letters that
Ao mesmo
summarize the
tempo,
best
cresce a
social,
consciência dos
environmental, and
consumidores
governance
sobre
practices.
companhias que estão de
Meanwhile,
fato
we have
agindo para
growing
construir
consumer
mundo melhor.
awareness
E o setor
for
privado tem sido
corporations that
o
are actually taking
protagonista
action to
na
build a
transição
better
para mundo
world. And the
sustentável.
private
As
sector has been
empresas já
taking a
entenderam
leading
que a
role
perenidade
in
dos
the
negócios
transition to a
não está
sustainable
apenas ligada
world.
ao valor que elas
Companies have
obtêm em seus
understood that the
esforços,
longevity of
mas também
business is not
ao
only
legado que
associated with
devolvem
the
à
value that they
sociedade.
get from these
É preciso
efforts,
atuar de
but
forma
also with the
construtiva
legacy that they
com
give
países do
back to
entorno,
society.
respeitar o
We
meio em
need
que
to
atua
work
e os
in a
recursos
positive
naturais
way with
e
neighboring
manter uma
communities,
relação
respect
proativa com
natural
seus
resources
diversos
in the
públicos de
environment in which they
relacionamento.
operate,
Um
and
exemplo desse
maintain a
compromisso com
positive
o meio
relationship
ambiente
with its
e com a
various
qualidade de vida
stakeholders.
é o
An
fundo
example of this
JBS
commitment to the
Amazônia,
environment and quality
instituto
of life
independente
is the
criado pela
JBS
JBS,
Fund for the
que já se
Amazon.
comprometeu a
This is
investir
an independent institute
250
created by
milhões de reais
JBS,
nos
which has
5
already
primeiros
committed to
anos,
invest
com o objetivo de
250
estimular a
million
conservação
reals in its
ambiental
first 5
e
years
fomentar o
in order
desenvolvimento
to
das
promote
comunidades locais
environmental
da Amazônia.
conservation
O
and to
fundo tem
foster the
como meta
development of
atingir a
local
marca de
communities in the
bilhão de
Amazon.
reais até
This fund's
2030.
goal is to
Para
reach
abrir a
1
nossa
billion
conversa e
reais
falar
by
sobre essa linda
2030.
iniciativa,
To
eu
start our
convido agora
conversation
Gilberto
and to talk about
Tomazoni,
this
ele é CEO
beautiful
global da
initiative,
JBS.
I turn it over
Gilberto,
to
boa
Mr.
tarde para você,
Gilberto
que prazer
Tomazoni,
recebê-lo aqui no
Global
nosso encontro,
CEO
tudo
of
bem?
JBS. Good
Tudo bem?
afternoon,
Boa tarde,
Gilberto, and
Rosana.
welcome.
Boa tarde a todos que
Hi,
nos
good
assistem.
afternoon. Good afternoon, Rosanna,
Em
and
setembro
everyone
do
who
ano
is here with
passado,
us.
lançamos o
In
fundo
September
JBS
of
para a
last
Amazônia.
year, we
É
launched
um
the
prazer enorme
JBS
saber
Fund
que
for the
agora ele está
Amazon.
iniciando o seu
I
impacto
am
positivo,
really happy to know that now
começando a
we are
concretizar o seu
affecting
propósito,
positive change
que é
and
o de
we are
apoiar,
starting to have
financiar
robust
projetos que visem o
results
desenvolvimento
regarding our purpose.
sustentável do bioma
We
amazônico.
want to work with
Desde o início,
sustainable projects
nosso
for the
objetivo
Amazon
foi
biome.
promover a conservação
From the
e o
get-go,
uso
our
sustentável da
goal
floresta,
was to
a
foster
melhoria da
preservation and
qualidade de vida da
sustainable use
população da
of this
região
forest.
e o
We also
desenvolvimento
want to improve
amparado
the
em
quality of
tecnologia
life
e
of
ciência.
communities in this region,
E
and we want
agora
to foster development
começamos
based
a
on
tornar isso
science and
realidade.
technology.
Como
This
será
is now
explicado
becoming
em
a
mais
reality.
detalhes aqui hoje, foi
As
período
we
de
will
muito
talk
trabalho para
about in more
chegarmos nesse ponto.
details later,
E é só o começo.
this has taken a lot
Sabemos
of
que
work
ainda
and a
resta
lot of
longo
effort,
caminho pela
but this
frente
is
para
just the
atingir todos
beginning.
os nossos
We
objetivos.
still have a long
O
road
mais
ahead of us
importante
to
é
reach
que
all of our
trilharemos
goals.
essa jornada
But
junto
what
assim,
matters the most is
junto com
that we'll
entidades do
be
terceiro setor,
walking this
com
journey
outras
together
empresas privadas,
with
com
private
instituições
companies,
públicas,
with the third
centros de
sector,
pesquisa
with
e,
public
acima de tudo,
institutes, with
as
research
comunidades locais.
centers, and above all
É
else,
assim
with
que vamos
local
avançar.
communities.
Os
This is how
desafios
we'll
da
make
Amazônia
progress.
devem ser
The
enfrentados por
challenges
todos,
that we have in the
em
Amazon
conjunto,
region
para
need
que
to
as
be tackled by
oportunidades
all of
que a
us
floresta
together.
proporciona também
We want
beneficiem
to
a
make
todos,
sure that the
em
opportunities
especial
offered by the
quem vive na
forest
região amazônica.
benefit everyone, especially
Agora,
people living
vamos
in this region.
ressaltar
Now, I
de
would
termos
like to
estabelecido
highlight
o Fundo
why we
JBS pela
decided to
Amazônia
establish the
no ano passado.
JBS Fund for the Amazon
A
last year.
palavra aqui é
The word
responsabilidade.
we need to emphasize here is
Somos responsáveis
accountability.
pelo maior patrimônio
Everyone
ambiental do
is
planeta.
accountable for the biggest
A floresta
natural
tem um
piece
papel
of heritage
fundamental
in
no
the
futuro que
world.
nós queremos.
The forest is
Nós
extremely
precisamos
important for the future we
futuro
want
mais
and for the
sustentável e
future
mais
we
justo,
need to have.
com
We
desenvolvimento
need
social
a
e
more
econômico
sustainable,
andando
more
lado a
fair
lado com
future,
a preservação
with
ambiental.
economic
E a
development and
JBS,
sustainability going
como a
hand
segunda
in hand
maior
with
empresa de
environmental
alimentação no mundo
preservation.
e a líder no
JBS
setor de
is the
proteína,
second
tem
biggest
uma
food
enorme
producing company in
responsabilidade
the world.
nessa história.
As a leader,
A nossa
we are
responsabilidade, é
hugely
claro,
accountable
não se
and we have a
restringe à
great
Amazônia.
responsibility
Se
here.
expande por
Our
todos os biomas
responsibility is not
brasileiros
restricted to
em
the
todos
Amazon
os cantos
region.
do mundo em
It
que atuamos.
expands to other biomes
E
in
o nosso
Brazil
foco em
and to other places
sustentabilidade
in the world.
também não se restringe
Our focus
a
on
um
sustainability
a
is
uma
also
ou outra
not
iniciativa
restricted
específico.
to specific
A
initiatives.
sustentabilidade é o farol que guia
Sustainability
os
is
nossos
our
estratégicos
North
negócios.
Star for every
Isso
business
depende
strategy.
não apenas do futuro da JBS, mas sim
Our
de
future
todos os
as
acionistas,
JBS depends on that, but the future of our
colaboradores,
shareholders,
parceiros,
clients,
consumidores
employees,
e toda a
partners,
sociedade.
consumers, and
É por
citizens
isso que,
also
no
relies
último
on
mês de
that.
março, assumimos
That
o
is why
compromisso
in
de
March,
ser net
we
zero
took a
até
commitment
2040.
of becoming
Ou
net
seja,
zero until
zerá o
2040.
balanço das nossas
This
emissões de
means that
gases
we'll have
causadores
zero
de efeito
emissions
estufa.
of
Uma
greenhouse
meta
gases
ambiciosa, mas
until
que
this
vamos cumprir.
date. This is a
Sempre
bold
seguindo
statement,
metas
but
baseadas
we
na
are
ciência.
going to reach this
Porque não é
goal.
apenas a
We
coisa
are
certa
always
para
going
fazer.
to work with
É a
goals
única
based on science,
alternativa
not only because
enquanto
this is the
sociedade.
right thing to do, but because this is
Amazônia
our
também.
only
O
option.
futuro de todos nós depende dessa
The
floresta.
same thing applies to the
Depende de
Amazon.
assegurarmos
Our
modelo de
future depends
desenvolvimento
on this
que amplie
forest.
a renda e a
It depends
qualidade
on
de vida
creating a
daqueles que
development
vivem na
model to
floresta.
increase
E, ao
income
mesmo
and quality
tempo,
of life
que
for
permite
people
sua
living in
conservação
this forest.
e até mesmo a sua
We also
restauração.
need to make sure we have its conservation and its
Nós estamos
preservation.
no limiar de uma grande revolução verde.
We
que
are
vai gerar
about to
grandes
start a
oportunidades e
big
desafios a
green
todos.
revolution, which is going to
Como
bring
em
a lot of
toda
opportunities
revolução,
and challenges
alguns
for
terão mais
everyone.
dificuldades em acompanhar a
And just
velocidade
like
do
in other
processo.
revolutions, some people are
Precisamos
going to
criar
struggle when it comes to
condições
keeping up
para que
with
as
this new
comunidades,
pace.
as pessoas que
However, we
vivem no
need to
bioma
create
amazônico,
the right scenario so
mesmo que não
that the
sejam
communities
parte
and people
da cadeia
living
de valor
in the
da
Amazon
JBS,
biome,
possam se
even if they are
beneficiar
not in the
de
supply
toda essa
chain
transformação.
created by JBS,
É
can
por isso
benefit from
que
this
criamos o
disruption.
Fundo pela Amazônia.
This
É
is
por
why
isso
we
que nos
created the
comprometemos a
JBS
injetar
Fund for the
250
Amazon.
milhões de reais
This
nessa
is why we said
iniciativa
we're going to
nos primeiros
invest
5 anos.
250
E
million
estamos
reals
dispostos
into this
a
initiative
dobrar esse
in the
valor
first
até
5
2030.
years, and we
A
want to
ideia é que,
double this
para
number
cada
until
real que conseguimos
2030.
atrair de outros
For
parceiros,
every
a
real we're
JBS
able to
invista mais
attract from
real.
other partners,
E assim
JBS
queremos que o Fundo
wants to have
JBS
a
pela
matching
Amazônia
contribution. This is
bilhão
how we want the
de reais de
JBS Fund
recursos
for the
até
Amazon
2030.
to amount to 1 billion reals in resources
Porque esse
until
fundo
2030.
pode
We
e
are
deve
relying
ser
on our
de todos
partners
aqueles
because
que
this
querem ver a
fund
floresta em pé,
could and
viva,
should belong
gerando
to everyone
riqueza
who
e
wants to
desenvolvimento
see the
sustentável para
forest
todos.
standing,
Este é meu
creating
convite.
wealth and creating sustainable development for
Acompanhe este
everyone.
webinar para entender como o Fundo
This is what I
JBS pela
want to
Amazônia
invite you to
está
join.
trabalhando. Para conhecer os
Watch
seus
this webinar
6
to understand
primeiros
how the
projetos que vamos
JBS Fund
apoiar e
for the
financiar.
Amazon
E
is
para
working,
compreender melhor
the
os
6 first
desafios e as
projects we're
oportunidades da
going to
floresta amazônica.
foster, and to understand the
Obrigado,
challenges and
Rosana,
opportunities
e
that the Amazon
ótimo
forest
webinar para
has to
todos.
offer to us. Thank you, Rosana, and enjoy the webinar. Mr. Gilberto Tomazoni, thank you so much for your words. And thank you for sharing with us a sustainability vision shared by JBS.
Obrigado.
Thank you. After these words, let's watch a video introducing the JBS Fund for the Amazon. Let's get to know a little bit more about projects chosen by this fund to receive their support and funds. To tackle environmental and climate change challenges, we have to take care of the Amazon. People living and working to keep this forest standing are the ones who know what is best for it. Our solution is in nature. Our solution is in the Amazon. Our solution is in its people. The best projects for the Amazon are created with the Amazon. These are initiatives that require support, investment, and visibility. We want to be a part of that. The JBS Fund for the Amazon presents the first projects for sustainable development in this biome. These are initiatives with the support, funding, and follow-up of our project. With experts, we spent 9 months studying these projects and many other projects very carefully. Months is the perfect amount of time for such an important project to be born. Learn more about these projects. Restaura Amazônia is one of them. This is a program fostering agriculture with up to 1,500 families with an increase in yield and forest recovery. creating reductions in carbon emissions. We also have a program for fair fishing and sustainable fishing, an initiative to strengthen the Pirarucu supply chain and the supply chain of other fish. We expand the market for fishery management to 55 riverside communities. We are also unlocking rural credit for the bioeconomy of this forest. This is a platform of funding and management to have easier access to credit by local growers. We have the community economy of acai. We are fostering bioindustrialization, research, youth, and more female participation in business. We have the AMAS Accelerator, an accelerator that is going to boost entrepreneurship in the Amazon, helping startups working in businesses that help us keep the forest standing. We also have collaborations with Embrapa, with research and development using science to foster the development of bioeconomy in the region. The Amazon is a giant and it requires sustainable development. It is rewarding to see the potential we have for this initiative, and we are just getting started. We are going to write this story together. More than a promise, this is a commitment made by the Jbs Fund for the Amazon. To develop the region and to improve yield and income, this is how you're going to do it. Protecting the Amazon is a duty that belongs to us all. Together with the Amazon, we've started this project and we're not going to stop. As Jbs Fund for the Amazon, working together for the people, working together for the planet. These are beautiful projects. Brazil's legal Amazon is a gigantic territory comprising 60% of Brazil. We're talking about more than 5 million square meters spread in 9 states and 775 municipalities, distributed among indigenous reserves, conservation and environmental protection units, rural settlements, and private properties, encompassing about 25 million people with a GDP of 572 billion reals. The Amazon faces a major environmental challenge because of deforestation and also a social challenge to guarantee income and quality of life for local communities. This is a worrying scenario which increases the urgency of priority actions focused on social, economic, and sustainable development. Now we welcome Joanita Maestri Karoleski, the president of the Jbs Fund for the Amazon, who will present and provide details about this very important initiative. Welcome, Joanita. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Good afternoon, Rosanna. I'm fine. This is a beautiful initiative, isn't it? Amazing images. Could you please tell us a little bit about the Jbs Fund for the Amazon? Thank you, Rosanna, and good afternoon to everyone. It is a pleasure to be here to share with you the strategy of the fund and the first 6 projects that were selected. It's important to highlight that point. Gilberto, when you mentioned that, we need to join forces for the people and for the planet. And the challenge that we are facing is huge to stop global warming and to protect the Amazon. There are many opportunities, and our purpose is to foster sustainable development, promoting the conservation and the sustainable use of the forest, as well as the improvement in the quality of life of the population. This is why we have very clear goals. We want to generate social impact, environmental impact. We also want to promote and increase the demand through the market and connect it with the production system. We also want to develop a low-carbon, self-sustainable economy supported by scientific and technological development. This is an opportunity of taking more science and technology in the development of sustainable projects. All of that is being done by many people. We work with a very independent governance system. We have an advisory board, also a technical committee, and we also have the support of the technical committee and the advisory committee that has different members with different backgrounds and different knowledge, and they know a lot about the Amazon. They were there before we got there. So the advisory board help us determine the strategy and make sure that the projects are aligned with our strategies, while the technical committee help us select the projects. They make an assessment together with our executive team to find the best opportunities. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the work that was developed in the first 9 months through the support of everyone. It was a relentless work involving designing the strategies, the pillars, and the assessment of projects. So I'm very thankful to this team, and I am sure that we are going to have more initiatives and business, and also we will bring sustainable development to the Amazon together. The fund wants to focus on sustainable projects, so the economic, social, and environmental perspective, but we also want to focus on self-sufficient projects. We want to analyze the whole supply chain. So we are studying the supply chain to detect opportunities, bottlenecks, and to work with these links in the supply chain to connect forest products and services and their people and the organizations to the market. We have chosen some priority supply chains. This list can be expanded. There are a lot of opportunities, but we're working with Brazil nuts, açaí, fishing, cocoa, livestock farming, reforesting, disruptive supply chains, so also using science and technology to find new applications of forest products, and also manioc. But it's not all. This is just the beginning, and we want to run the study to find these opportunities and bottlenecks for investment. How have we been doing that? Initially, we had 50 projects that were received through our website, jbsfund.org, as well as those projects that were contacted by the executive team. And from those, we approved 6 projects. Part of these 6 projects operate on the supply chains, but we also pursued structuring opportunities because the Amazon requires a better business infrastructure. So our portfolio meets those 2 purposes. They are not short-term projects. Those projects last from 2 to 5 years, and that's something important to mention. We have found a possibility of developing self-sustainable projects, and to do so, we cannot think in the short term. So this is why we assess these projects following different criteria. So, of course, compliance with the topics and the funds, science, technology support to communities. Those projects should be sustainable. They also should be scalable and based on tests that we've had on some projects, it's important to be able to roll them out and to scale them up. They should also involve innovation and create value to communities. We want to build the economy and the businesses together with the people from the Amazon. We need to respect the knowledge and experience of the organizations there. We need to pursue connection with the market. So we want to work with projects where we can connect the supply chain with the market and work in a network of partnerships to make the best of everything that has already been developed, to make the best of the experience we've had, to really join forces to do things together, and also to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. This is important and is also aligned with the purpose of improving climate. All these projects are also aligned with the 9 goals of sustainable development of the United Nations. I'm not going to go into the details of each one of them, but during this webinar, we are going to hear from those who are implementing the projects, and they will talk more about those aspects. The first project is Restaura Amazônia. This is a 5-year project where we want to pursue low carbon solutions and to scale them up through new technologies, restoration of degraded areas using SAF, so agroforestry systems that involve cocoa, livestock farming, and other species. We also want to encourage crops that will improve the livelihood of the smallholders. So this has potential of expanding to benefit more families and more area. This has already been tested by the group Solidaridad and IPAM, and we want to expand this project to promote self-sustainability. One of the project deliverables will be the incubation of 4 technical support organizations in this region. We are committed to this project to improve from 230 families served to 1,500, and from 8.7 thousand hectares to 75,000 hectares of the area with good agricultural practices, and an increase by 30% in the family income. The second project also is related to supply chain. It works with açaí. Açaí is communities of extractivist workers, and we want to provide value added to the açaí production. We want to help them improve the bioindustrialization of açaí by building a biofactory and adding more value to their production. We also focus on the communities. We want to work with family-based schools in the community. Usually they do not have a stream of resources that is constant, and we do not want those schools to stop operating. We also work with the purpose of having more women being part in these co-ops and working at the State University of Amapá to use waste and improve the use of water in communities. Amazon by Interelos Instituto IEB Coela, the State University of Amapá, and Institute Berar are the organizations involved in this project. And in addition to the improvements in health and education of these communities, we also have the potential of conserving 3.9 hectares of açaí farming. The third project also involves the supply chain, and this supply chain has a huge potential in the Amazon. It is related to strengthening in the pirarucu farming supply chain. Wild pirarucu, that's a fish that has been very successfully managed in this region. We have had more of these fish in some of the freshwater areas in the Amazon. We still have bottlenecks in processing. We have managing issues and issues in market access. So this project will support a boat with freezing capabilities to take the fish to the market. We also need to see whether it will be possible to have a freezing unit for this supply chain. We also want to expand this production to new markets and bring more income to families. Our commitment is to increase the volume from 90 tons to 270 tons a year of fish, and benefiting more families from 200 to 450 people that ultimately reaches about 1,800 people, and also providing technical training to women in fish processing. Our partner here is SPROC. The other project is a structuring project. I mentioned that we focus on some supply chain projects while others focus on building an appropriate business infrastructure in the Amazon. So this project is to provide rural credit to rural farmers, to small farmers. A very small percentage of that is used in this group today. This project aims at expanding access to rural credit. The Bank of Amazon will be an activator of credit. So there is a professional that will not only provide technical support, but also access to credit. Conexus will be the operator of this network of activators. We want to reach over 2,000 small extractivist workers in this region and improving technical support. The other project is also very challenging. AMAZI. This is an accelerator of impact investments. We understand that entrepreneurship needs to be improved as well as good management practices. So this will be an innovation entrepreneurship project that would accelerate startups based on the forest economies. 6 startups will be accelerated a year, totaling 30 in 5 years. The fund will be part of the managing committee that will guide how these investments were made. IDSAN is the partner in this project, and this is a 5-year project. Finally, our technical partnership and one of the pillars of this fund is science and technology. In our understanding, we have a major possibility here, and we made a technical partnership with Embrapa to integrate the forest, livestock farming, and also agribusiness. We want to promote the research of new products, biodiversity, and also the dissemination of agroforestry systems to reduce emission of carbon. This is also a long-term project. We've had many projects with Embrapa before. We were able to scale up some of them, while others have generated very disruptive ideas. So, seen as a whole, and considering all the impact that can be generated by the 6 projects, we will achieve social, economic, and environmental impacts, among which, in the economic area, we can impact more than 14,000 families. We are investing 56 million reais, and their income of those families can increase from 30 to 40%. 30 startups will be created, and the productivity of the supply chains will be increased by 22 to 39%. In terms of social aspects, we can provide good technical support to more than 4,000 families, and also to support 2 family-based self-sufficient schools, and to develop an inclusive bioeconomy, making business prospection, business development together with the communities. In terms of environmental aspects, we will be able to reduce 1.4 million tons of CO2 and 1,500 hectares restored in cocoa production and livestock farming, as well as preservation areas. Those are significant impacts, and we should mention that several projects, as you've seen, start with tested models, start from initiatives that already exist, but we want to multiply them and increase their scale. And we want to do much more. As Gilberto mentioned, we invested the first 250 million reais by JBS in the first 5 years. We want to get support from the market, from stakeholders, from companies that are interested in that, to reach 1 billion reais in donations by 2030, up to 500 million reais. JBS is committed to match the investment of external investors to the limit of 500 million reais. So I make this invitation to you. Let's work together and let's move forward together in this initiative. So once you see the projects we have and the strategies we put together, I believe that now we have a good body of experience with the technical committee and the advisory board. And I invite all of you to join us. If you want to submit new projects, you can do that through our website, which is open to receive new projects. You can also send us email. By that, we want to prepare the next portfolio. Thank you. Joanita, you have brought very relevant information indicating that this fund is very well structured, focused on environmental preservation, dignity, good quality of life of the neighboring communities. And companies that want to participate, and you mentioned partnership several times, what should they do? We are already in contact with some partners. The fund was proactive to that end. We have identified several stakeholders in our supply chain. We are talking to investors. If you want, you can contact us through the website. And this is true both for individuals and companies. We have partnerships with stakeholders in the supply chain. And we are very proud to share this initiative to show you the structure we put together. And if you want to join us, just get in contact with us, and we are also going to contact you, definitely. Thank you very much, Joanita, for your participation, and congratulations on this fund, and good luck. Bye, thank you. It is always nice to see projects of this size taking shape and being implemented in the Amazon. And to learn more about the importance and positive impacts, let's hear the message sent by 3 members of the advisory board of the JBS Fund for the Amazon.
Hi, my name is Stefan Gerard, and I am working with institutional relations for the Carrefour Group in Brazil. Noel Priu, president of the group in Latin America, and I are really happy to be able to contribute to the JBS Fund for the Amazon. 6 projects have already been approved by this fund. These are important, trying to preserve our forest and working basically on 3 big pillars. Number 1, preserving the forest. These are very important projects. Number 2, the communities. We're talking about over 23 million people who live in the Amazon and who we need to help so that we have sustainable development. Number 3, or the 3rd pillar, has to do with science and technology. Without them, it would be really hard to protect our forest. Congratulations, JBS Fund for the Amazon. Let's keep on working with more projects in the future. The world knows how important the Amazon is to the planet, and as Brazilians, we know how important the Amazon is for us as well. This fund has a very specific governance guideline with a number of advisory boards, a board of directors, and its own management. Fund works on the biggest priority supply chains in the Amazon with acai, cocoa, Brazil nuts, reforestation, livestock, fish, and manioc. We also had a very interesting idea of working with startups. So right now we have over 30 startups who are receiving support, in addition to a number of other projects that are being supported by this fund. I am personally very happy to be able to be a part of this initiative, which in such a short amount of time has yielded such concrete results. The first group for the JBS Fund for the Amazon is a very important group. for everyone who is involved in this process with analysis, contributions, and conversations about the paths that we want to follow and the roads that we need to follow when it comes to funding fund like the JBS Fund for the Amazon. We are trying to figure out how to help with the sustainability of this region. For that, we need to find important, relevant partners who are actually able to have these investments turn into results. We are talking about simple results when it comes to the conservation and protection of our social and environmental conditions, but also with the reduction of the social inequality we see in the region. Great. These were 3 members from the advisory board of the JBS Fund for the Amazon. And now we welcome another board member of this fund, Mr. Carlos Nobre, an environmentalist and researcher at the Institute for Advanced Studies at the University of São Paulo. Now let me start a conversation with him with a broad question. Humankind currently faces one of its greatest challenges, climate change. I want to know what is the importance of the Amazon in this scenario, what is its impact on the planet's climate, and what we could expect if we failed to preserve it. Good afternoon, Professor Carlos. Hi, Rosanna. Good afternoon. You're right. The Amazon region is extremely important for climate stability on the planet. We are talking about over 120 billion tons of carbon in the biomass, both overhead and under the ground. The Amazon region is also extremely important to stabilize climate regionally. In the Amazon region, we have lower temperatures, and the forest helps with rain. It recycles a lot of water, and this steam leaves the Amazon basin and helps us in rainfall in other parts of South America, for example, in the Paraná basin, in the La Plata basin, in the Andean region, and in the rainfall in Colombia. We need to protect climate stability. We are at a great risk. The Amazon region is giving off clear signals and clear signs that we are getting to a point of no return with the phenomenon of savanization, where most of the Amazon will become a savanna and will lose most of this forest. Now, if this comes to happen, not only local climate will change with changes in rainfall around the Amazon region, but we'll see an increase in temperature at around 2 or 3 degrees. Also, the carbon that we see in this forest is going to turn into carbon dioxide, over 250 billion tons within 3 or 4 decades. This would make it really hard for us to reach our goals for the Paris Agreement. That is why it is essential for us not only to stop deforestation, but to restore much of the Amazon that has been deforested. Not only to save the Amazon forest, but also to fight this gigantic risk imposed by climate change.
Now bringing the discussion to a more local scenario. The per capita income in the Amazon is currently 20% lower than the Brazilian average. Do you believe that it is possible to promote economic development in the region, increasing the income and quality of life of the population while keeping the forest standing? How can we solve this dilemma, and what is the role of bioeconomy in this? There is no doubt that if you consider the planet, we don't use our biodiversity much, the biodiversity of rainforests. Even in Brazil, our economy does not use much of the largest biodiversity place in the planet. The Amazon is the place where we have the largest number of species, and there is a high risk of a pandemic if we do not change the way that we develop the Amazon today. There's also a huge potential for economic products. We have some good examples such as açaí. In agroforestry systems, they can explore açaí and still keep the forest standing. It's bringing more than 1 billion reais a year, has already benefited over 200,000 people who were very poor. Now, some of them have even moved up to middle class. So this is a potential that is untapped. Brazil can lead the countries in the Amazon and try to develop a bioeconomy with a standing forest, with very productive agroforestry systems and adding values to products. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of products, and we need to create this new bioeconomy and engage the Amazonian populations, both urban and rural, in this new economy, especially through the industrialization. We need to devise new models and to innovate industrialization models for forest products. If we are successful, and I give as an example açaí, cocoa, Brazil nuts, and other products, we can provide better well-being to the populations in the Amazon. In the city of Belém, 4,000 people are working in the pre-industrialization of açaí. They have already moved up to middle class there. This is the way to go. It is an economy with the forest standing, with innovation, and with the combination of traditional knowledge that's very wide in the region. So we need to combine traditional knowledge and innovation. There is no doubt that innovation is crucial here, especially when you talk about promoting bioeconomy in the Amazon. With all these points in perspective, what is the role of philanthropic capital and the private sector in the preservation of the Amazon? Is it possible to use philanthropic capital preserving the traditional knowledge of the Amazonian communities? For many decades, philanthropic capital and even philanthropic donations made by large corporations have been very important to benefit Amazonian and indigenous riverside communities, maroon communities, and also to value forest products somehow. Now, we need to move to a different scale. We need to increase the number of donations from the private sector and philanthropic capital to meet the challenges of building a new bioeconomy in the Amazon. And the second challenge, which we may even lead in its global implementation in the tropics, involves the use of traditional indigenous peoples in the Amazon have been there for at least 11,000 years, and they have always lived very well there. All their livelihood comes from the forest. So the medicines they use, the food they eat, everything they use comes from the forest, and the forest keeps standing, which is crucial. And they know very much the value of forest products. New technologies can add value to these products and bringing these products outside the Amazon and reaching global and national markets. To be able to make this leap, we need to have much higher investments in the Amazon, especially those made by the private sector. It is very important that the private sector invest in the development of research and innovation in that area. Globally speaking, the private sector is the one that invests the most in research and development. This is why we need to bring the sector, especially the one in Brazil, and also interacting with international sources. They need to interact with the science and technology and innovation area. We need to engage technology institutes and universities. We need to create new advanced technology research centers and to use technology that will work in the Amazon, that will work to develop this new economy in the Amazon. That economy needs to engage and benefit the traditional populations in the region. Thank you, Professor Carlos Nobre. Thank you very much for your participation. You have brought this perspective of the major potential of the Amazon. He is a scientist and expert in climate. Now, moving on in our program, we'll get to know some of the projects selected by the JBS Fund for the Amazon. Representatives from the six selected initiatives sent us a message. Here are the first two. The Association of Rural Producers in Aruari, ASPROC, has been working in the region of Mídio Juruá for the past 30 years. It was created by extractivist workers to improve social and economic conditions to this population. Half of that time was dedicated to the sustainable farming of wild pirarucu farming. With that, we are going to have a direct impact on the populations served by ASPROC. Over 1 million protected areas developed with the help of this association. Hundreds of families are involved in these activities. And with this project, supported by the JBS Fund for the Amazon, it will be possible to purchase a boat following the sanitary conditions required by the Ministry of Agriculture. And with that, the communities served by this association can have pre-processing of the fish and to conserve it and transport that to a processing area. 450 families will be directly involved from 55 riverside communities and an income of over 2 million reais. That's the equivalent of 270 tons of fish a year. Then we can encourage communities to continue to conserve the natural resources in their regions, and that brings livelihood to their families. AMAS is an initiative coordinated by DESAN and implemented with several partners, investors, companies, and funders. And its purpose is to identify, invest, accelerate, and develop startups or impactful businesses in the Amazon region. Our goal is to invest in 30 businesses in the next 5 years and to support them in their management and development in the next 10 years. We hope to leverage new investors that will support the development of the new economy in the Amazon. The role of the JBS Fund for the Amazon is crucial, since we are building what is probably the largest blended finance fund that combines capital and private investments for the development of business. We believe that a new economy is required to refrain deforestation in the Amazon, and this starts now. How nice it is to see unique projects with noble goals being implemented. After all, our lives directly depend on the preservation of the Amazon. Talking about the Amazon, its importance and biodiversity, we have 3 very special guests here to talk to us: the economist and entrepreneur Bia Saldanha, the Director of Programs and Projects of JBS Fund for the Amazon, Andrea Azevedo, and the journalist and chef Roberto Esmeraldi. A warm welcome to you all. Thank you very much for your participation in our session.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here. Hi everyone, how's it going? Thank you for having me and for having me with Bia and Roberto to talk
Muito bom
about
estar com
launching this fund.
tantos bons amigos.
Hi, it is great to be here among friends. Let me sit down to start our conversation. Bia, I'll start with you. Tell us what led you to envision and create a business in the Amazon forest back in the 90s. No one thought about this kind of endeavor. And how are these projects going now? Well, this is a great starting topic. I usually say that the fuel of an entrepreneur is passion. And the fuel of entrepreneurship in the Amazon region is our love for the region. At the beginning of the 90s, I was actually a part of a group working with the Green Pact in Brazil back in the 80s. And we were in touch with rubber extractors in the state of Acre. Our lives were deeply impacted when we signed this deal. And we understood that we wouldn't be able to save the Amazon if we were located in Rio de Janeiro. We had to be there. My first fashion business was created when I was 18. It was a small business. I was already working in fashion, but then I created this goal to do what I knew how to do, which was working in fashion. That is why I moved to the Amazon. I was looking for partnerships and collaborations, and I started collaborating with rubber extractors. I've been working with the rubber supply chain since then. I believe that this is a really important supply chain because of its outreach in the Amazon region, because of its history, and because of its context. We are still fighting to be updated because this supply chain was extremely important for Brazil in the past. And throughout the past decades, we had to reinvent ourselves, and this is what I have been doing and what I did in the last 3 decades because I started this journey in 1991. Great. Roberto is also deeply connected to the Amazon region since the late 80s. Roberto, what do you think about this new trend of corporate awareness towards environmental preservation? Is this different from what we used to see in the past?
Bem, eu enxergo que
Well, right now I do see a few things. I see that it took us a long time to learn certain lessons. But as Tomazoni put it really well at the beginning of our session, sometimes it is impossible to stop certain things from happening, and some things are irreversible. Now, it sounds to me that some of these irreversible processes are the ones that we experience right now in our global economy. They have to do with the source and with the point of origin of something. We need to understand that a business is not only the products that it offers, but also its whole supply chain, which goes beyond all that. So we need to think about how a company adds value to its environment. And also, as Tomazini said really well, what it takes responsibility for. Of course, Roberto is talking about something very important, ESG systems. the best environmental, social, and governance practices, which have been a North Star for most investors and entrepreneurs. I will now hand it over to Andrea. Wonderful, wonderful speakers when it comes to environmental preservation and sustainability. So, Andrea, what is the difference between today and the past when we think about investments to protect the Amazon? Hi, Rosanna. Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. Come on, I'm not wonderful. We need to stay humble whenever we talk about the Amazon because there's no silver bullet here and we don't know much about it yet. This is a huge challenge. There's no recipe to tackle these challenges. And what I think is that right now, people acknowledge how important the Amazon is for the planet and for global warming. It is also important for Brazil with our rainfall system. Additionally, it is important because of the different cultures and the biodiversity we can find there. But I would say we still have a long transition ahead of us. There's still a lot to be done in the Amazon. And I think we should mention 3 different challenges at the beginning of this conversation because I think the Amazon still has to work on these challenges. Number 1, we need to see the Amazon as a big provider of environmental services. And acknowledging that means having the right tools for it. We need a robust industry to do that. We need to develop a forestry-based economy. How can we have instruments to have concrete acknowledgement of that? Number 2, we need to reduce inequality and poverty in the Amazon. As you were saying, the development levels in the Amazon region are still very low compared to the rest of Brazil. Even when we have GDP, many of these communities consume products from the Amazon, for example, acai, and this does not necessarily lead to malnutrition, but we do have a lot of poverty when it comes to income. In cities, for example, we see that 75% of the population live in urban areas, but we still have low levels of sanitation and not many jobs. Most jobs in the region are with the government. And we still see children dying from diarrhea. Yesterday, I was with Cristina Bastos, and we were talking about that. We have children dying in the Amazon because of diarrhea. We also have floods in this region. It is really sad to see such a rich region with so much biodiversity, but with so much poverty and inequality. Now, number 3, another challenge which we have to tackle, and Roberto and Bia have been at it for a long time, is to revisit what we want for the Amazon. We need a governmental plan. We need a multi-sectorial plan with private companies, governmental institutions, etc., etc. Our former governor usually says that we don't have a historical experience of a forestry economy. We don't have a role model for that, and we have to come up with it. This is something we have to discuss, and we have to engage every potential stakeholder, because this is something that needs to be discussed by the whole country. This is of national interest, and we can even think about how the whole world can contribute to this. So these are some of the challenges that we have. Of course, we do have other challenges, and we still have a long road ahead of us. But in the short term, we need to start solving some of these problems within this decade. Thank you very much, Andrea. We actually have to change our mindset according to what you said. We need to look at the Amazon not as a hostile land and not leaving the forest there. We need to work with its bioeconomy and to improve the quality of life of people living there. Now, speaking of food, Roberto, we know that the forest offers a range of ingredients. And this also benefits the local communities, creating a lot of income. Would you say that this potential has been well explored? Is there more for our palate in the forest?
Então é com certeza a Disney de nós
Of course.
brasileiros, né?
We do have a lot of wonderful things in the Amazon. It is the Disney world of cooks and chefs because we have a lot of diversity and we get to learn a lot, test a lot of things out. But as you were mentioning, we have to think about reality. By the way, within a few weeks, we'll be releasing a study called Amazon 2030. We'll be releasing unprecedented data. This data is related to dependencies in the food supply chain in the Amazon region in comparison to Brazil and to other countries. And it is surprising to see how the food system goes through everything that we do and every job that we have in the service industry. This is extremely important in the Amazon region for the survival of its people and for its economy. And usually, when we see big figures, we think that they are going to be related to iron ore or to livestock raising, but that's not the case. There is so much diversity and so much distribution and impact from food systems in the Amazon region that this is really impressive. But certainly this is underused right now. Joanita was talking about the fund and its priorities at the beginning, and I think 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 8, if I'm not mistaken, are related to food chains. We are talking about açaí and manioc and fish. So this is what I would say. We are now tackling a new reality in the world of food and in endeavors related to food in the Amazon. Let me give you an example. You were talking about cocoa. Cocoa comes from the Amazon, and most Brazilians have no idea that it comes from the Amazon, just like most people in the world. Many people believe that cocoa was found in Mexico, where it was taken to by indigenous peoples 8,000 years ago. Some other people think it belongs to Bahia with Jesuits or to the Ivory Coast, where it was taken to from Bahia. But we do have this endemic fruit in the Amazon region with 20,000 varieties of cocoa. So we need to stop talking about cocoa and we need to talk about cocos, plural. Great, Roberto. This is really interesting, really rich explanations, full of details. Thank you. We are going to take a short break right now, but we'll be back to talk to you, Bia and Andrea, because this is an amazing conversation. But let's check out 2 other projects included in the JBS Fund. Hi, I am an executive director at Connexus to work with social environmental impact in the Amazon region and in other biomes. We are really happy with this project with the JBS Fund for the Amazon because we can increase scale and work with a funding model based on technical production for small growers who are at the end point of these economies. For 2 years, we're going to work with the implementation of a line of credit network. We are going to work with technical assistance and production assistance with our farmers. Over 2,000 farmers will benefit from this. We are also going to work with co-ops and associations who gather these farmers. 15 co-ops will gather support, and they are connected to the supply chains of cocoa, acai, and Brazil nuts, among others. Our biggest goal with this project is to show that we can come up with a sustainability system so that technical assistance and access to credit have a positive effect on our production. An essential partnership for us is the Bank of the Amazon, which is going to extend credit to strengthen the PRONAF Family Agriculture Program. Right now, we have over 2 billion reals for the Amazon region in resources for family farming, but not much is used for these chains connected to the forest. We want to create this instrument of financial inclusion in this process, and with the Bank of the Amazon, we want to create this better access to credit. Throughout these 2 years, we forecast 20 million reals in rural credit for these growers. We want them to see roads to increase the use of PRONAF in these supply chains. Our collaboration with the JBS Fund for the Amazon for this biome is something that really excites us. Strengthening bioeconomies is paramount to protect forests, as well as to invest in more sustainable production systems. This is what we're going to work towards in the next years, developing technologies to add value to products from this biome and to help foster a low-carbon economy. The private sector is paramount to preserve the Amazon region, and in collaborations with public institutes like Embrapa, we can make a difference. We need more companies to join in on this effort. We're sure that this collaboration between Embrapa and our fund will be essential for scientific and technological development in the Amazon, creating jobs, income, quality of life, and sustainability. Come join this initiative.
Those are projects that will change lives and also our relationship with the forest. And this should definitely happen now. Now, going back to our conversation here with our guests, I would like to ask a question to Bia and Roberto. After so many years working in one of the most important biomes of the planet, in your opinion, what Amazonian entrepreneurship practices could be adapted to the rest of the world and to the rest of Brazil? I believe that the Amazon has a lot to teach. The peoples from the forest have a lot to teach the world. The Amazon people is perseverant, resilient. So in terms of entrepreneurship, those are crucial qualities, especially for those who want to become an entrepreneur in the Amazon. I want to congratulate the fund for the projects selected because they are very relevant. I am familiar with some of these projects. What we can see in those cases, in terms of what they have already brought to us historically, and the success they've had, such as ASPROC. ASPROC is an amazing association. It has a wonderful operation in the Amazon. We need to look at those success cases and to share the lessons learned from them. Joanita mentioned that they should focus on the long term. This is very important. In the past 3 decades I've worked here, I even had to study economics. I went to the Federal University of Acre to start thinking about economy and entrepreneurship with a more technical perspective, not basing myself only on my own experience. So we should consider those projects and see that what is short term in the Amazon, what is long term in the Amazon. There is a major lag in terms of schooling level in the Amazon, so we have a gap there. There are challenges that are inherent to the Amazon. What makes social biodiversity so important to conserve the Amazon are the same features that pose barriers to those products in the market. So, scale and logistics. Those are the challenges we'll always face. Of course, you can try to scale up your production, but when you're talking about forest products, you're not talking about commodities. I work with native rubber, for example. If you think of natural rubber, similar to what is planted in the south of the country, where you have 700 trees per hectare, you're not talking about the same product, because what I work with here is a product that is part of the native forest, and you might have 1 or 2 trees, maybe 3 trees per hectare. Those are different perspectives, and we need to take them into account. The trajectory of the projects that are leveraged will mean a long-term investment. Impactful philanthropy is very relevant here. The Jbs Fund for the Amazon is a very appropriate initiative for the times we're living. We need to create this environment. First, we build the environment, then we're going to get the investments. This is why we need to strengthen those associations. And that's the case of ASPROC. 10 years ago, there was investment in strengthening that association, and this is crucial. Otherwise, you cannot leverage supply chain projects without reinforcing the role of these associations. You might work on access to credit, for example, but who will give support to those initiatives? And that's the role of Connexus, for example. It's very relevant in training those associations so that they can be agents of credit access. Those are some of the ideas I could give you. But basically, I think we can take those examples and understand their trajectory. Those are initiatives that have a history, and they have a very relevant history of persistent people, and that's crucial for entrepreneurship in the Amazon. I see that Roberto is nodding. He's agreeing with what Bia is saying. So, Roberto, what does the Amazon entrepreneurship can teach us? Well, I don't need to repeat what Bia said because she answered beautifully. Resilience, the ability of surviving there, associations that have been tested in doing so. But I think that what lacks to entrepreneurs in the Amazon is clarity and realizing the products that they have at hand. Sometimes we need to make this matching. Very successful entrepreneurships in Amazon require this matching, and the producer needs to have resilience indeed. And he needs to meet with someone else. He needs to meet someone like Bia Saldanha, someone who decides to move from Rio and then go there. So there will be people like her who are making the difference in this environment and making the difference in what I call a matching economy. And many of the successful business in Amazon have that. Because sometimes those who are in the Amazon do not realize the potential of that business. But I think the most strategically regarding your question, what I can say is that there's something new, something from recent studies we've been conducted that makes it clear to us. Well, it's something that we can accept, not necessarily change, which is called a de-economy of scale. Sometimes the entrepreneurship is successful to a point, and that business, for various reasons that not worth mentioning here, will hardly be able to move up bigger than that. Sometimes the business would like to grow, but the conditions in the Amazon or the lack of a synergistic environment with other businesses, whether it has to do with packaging or inputs, make a scenario when businessmen sometimes will be successful if they remain small. And today, we have a significant number of businesses that work so hard, but barely making it in previous decades. And today, those businesses are doing relatively well. But it's difficult for them to go over 40 or 50 employees or direct employees, something like that. So they don't have a wide number of indirect suppliers either. So this de-economy of scale is not very encouraging for larger companies to invest in the Amazon. There are all sorts of risks. Land-related risks, reputational risks, risks of violating laws that you didn't even know exist. So there are risks of many types. And because of that, many companies believe that their way of protecting the Amazon is not getting involved and just staying away, saying, I have nothing to do with the Amazon, I just let it be. And that's a mistake. But it's important to understand why that happens. Because business of scale is not very promising for investors in the Amazon. In food business, for example, We do not encourage that so much, but we need to understand why that happens. So the challenge for entrepreneurs is to overcome this problem, overcome these difficulties of that economy of scale. We should have an entrepreneurship environment that is more friendly to investors. It's good to be resilient, but not that much, right? It's okay, Roberto. Now, Andrea, you've already mentioned some important elements that should be considered in the development of the economy for the Amazon forest. What should be the next steps for the JBS Fund for the Amazon, in your opinion? What can the population expect from this initiative in the short and medium term? Joanita briefly touched on that. We are looking at a wide range of supply chains. So Amazon that is more widely populated, when you have livestock farming supply chain, especially smallholders that indeed need to increase their productivity and recover degraded areas. So we do have focus on those types of supply chains. And there are also what we call the expansible supply chains from the forest, where we want to work with community business. There is this first stage of social organization in these chains, and right now we are trying to leverage some business that already have some sort of organization. If there is no active participation of these groups, it hardly ever will work out. Small holders or extractivist workers in the Amazons should work together with us. I know it's challenging. We should have a process of collective development. Otherwise, it's not possible to achieve scale. People work independently, and we will depend on middlemen. Some of them are ill-intended, and they end up getting a good portion of the revenue of extractivist workers. So we are focusing on these expansible supply chains, trying to combine these links and use more technology and value added to these supply chains. And finally, we also focus on disruptive supply chains that focus on niche economy, bioproducts, new ingredients, new packaging, focusing a lot on the food industry. We believe that this is very promising for the biodiversity in the Amazon, and that involves science and technology. This is one of the aspects that the fund would like to focus on. So we hope to learn a lot from this first portfolio of projects. We will expand them, but we also want to create synergy with the already existing projects, increasing their potential so that we can see results in the next years. And talk about supply chain, we're talking about territory, talking about increasing wealth in the region, of developing an entrepreneurship environment that is more active, and that's not easy. It takes years to develop that. There are some innovation hubs in Brazil, like Florianopolis, where we see that it requires some processes there first, and we need continuous research projects. We need innovation and applied research projects there. Something that is more realistic. Of course, we also need leading edge research initiatives, but our focus will be on the self-sustainability of initiatives to gain scale and to promote systemic and structuring changes. This process of innovation will lead to new products, to new uses, and to new business models. And we hope to encourage and foster this type of ecosystem. Talking more about resources and partners and funders, in our next steps, we also want to attract other private companies to join us and to establish partnerships with the public sector where this is synergistic or where we have some common goal. Elanco is an animal nutrition company that has already shown interest in joining us. What we see is that this initiative that was started by JBS as the largest provider of this fund could also be a platform for the private sector to start looking at the Amazon, to start bringing those pilot projects and tests to be run in the region. And they can also bring those structuring elements to their own supply chains. We see a major opportunity there. We see this opportunity of making this fund a more comprehensive initiative where the private sector can contribute to the region that belongs to all of us and a region that we want to see developed economically, socially, and also environmentally. Andrea, Roberto, and Bia, thank you very much for your participation in this session. Bia, show to us the bracelets that you have. Look at how beautiful they are. Thank you very much and see you next time. Bia, would you like to say something? Yes, let me tell who made this. This is made by the Wanawa people, artisans, made by women, and their work is very beautiful, also involves empowerment, female strength of that people. Thank you very much, and see you next time. All the best. This was so fruitful. A lot of reflections on the need of having a new look on the Amazon. I would like once again to thank our guests who have shared very interesting information with us and to expand our knowledge about the importance of preserving the Amazon forest. And to wrap up, now let's see the last two projects selected by the JBS Fund for the Amazon.
We are a civil society organization working towards sustainability and inclusion in agriculture. We've been around for 51 years in the world and 11 years in Brazil. The Restaura Amazônia project, which is starting now, wants to have production recovery with cocoa agroforestry. We also want to work with intensive livestock grazing, forestry, and the social inclusion of family farmers through the Trans-Amazon region. This initiative was born 5 years ago based on a production model that is integrated and that was developed by Solidaridad in this region. We wanted to foster an increase in production, yield, and income for these families, while also promoting a reduction in carbon emissions and deforestation in this region. From now on, with the support of the JBS Fund, we are going to expand the impact of this model, taking it to 1,500 families of farmers in this region. They will receive training, qualification, technical assistance, and orientation to deploy this model and to receive the benefits of this integrated model. We will be working with 30,000 hectares of pasture land according to best practices. We are also going to implement 1,500 hectares of intensive livestock grazing with 7,500 hectares of agroforestry systems with cocoa under best practices, another 1,500 hectares with new agroforestry systems with cocoa, and 34,500 hectares of preserved forests, to a total of 75,000 hectares under best practices in the next 5 years. We'd like to thank the JBS Fund for helping us so much in the leveraging of this model to benefit 1,500 families throughout this region. My name is Almiraldo Picanso, and I am the president of the Amazon Buy Co-op. I am in the Amazon Buy project working with the supply chain for açaí. This project was created 4 years ago. Our goal is to strengthen the bioeconomy of the açaí supply chain. The JBS Fund for the Amazon is going to have very positive impact environmentally speaking because of the conservation of native forests. Socially speaking, it is going to help us with financial gains and management, and economically speaking, this will help us increase the revenue of the family members of our members. After so many important conversations, and upon learning a little more about the JBS Fund for the Amazon and its projects, we have reached the end of this important session. To learn more about all these initiatives, visit our website at www.fundojbsamazonia.org. I would like to thank our panelists and all of you who joined us on this journey. Take care and see you next time.